Here's 5 reasons that you should probably reconsider getting that terrarium. This also applies to aquariums, ripariums, vivariums, paludariums, any of the EMs, anything that you're going to have living plants or animals in a glass box in your house, this applies to. The first one is going to be maintenance. Now this is going to vary a lot according to plants or animals that you have in your setup, but maintenance is going to be regular no matter how you set it up. Even if it's bioactive and it ultimately takes care of itself, plants are going to need to be trimmed back, animals are going to need to be fed, things are going to need to be adjusted. The biggest thing to keep in mind with maintenance is that it's kind of exciting and fun for the first 1, 2, 6 months, kind of depending on whoever you are, but after that it really just turns into extra work, which makes it feel a lot more time consuming and demanding. I always recommend if you're going to get something, try to automate as much as possible. If something needs to be misted, get an automatic mister. If something needs to be fed, try to automate that as well. Anything you can to make those processes just a little bit simpler will make a huge difference. But if you're the type of person that likes to get into things and then gets bored of them really quick, might not be the best option for you to get something set up with living animals or plants in your home. Number 2 is going to be cost of upkeep. Even if you set up something really basic, if you have an animal in there, there's going to be a cost of upkeep. Lights go out, it needs to be fed, and you're always going to be spending just a little bit of money on that terrarium, even if you plan not to. The initial setup is what most people think costs the most money, but you need to make sure that you're okay with continually spending just little bits of money on that terrarium with those plants and animals, making sure they stay healthy and alive. Number 3 is going to be space requirement. If you live in a big house, you have tons of extra rooms, it's not going to be that hard to find a place to put these, but most of us don't have a bunch of extra space. If you're living in a small apartment, or even if you own your own home, townhome, anything like that, most of those rooms get used, and this is going to be something that takes up space and most of the time is kind of difficult to move. So if you don't have somewhere you can have a dedicated area for this setup, it might not be the best idea to get set up in the first place. Number 4 is going to be your knowledge and expertise in taking care of any plants or animals that you do get. If you're new to the hobby, I would definitely recommend setting something up with just plants in it, maybe a small cleanup crew, just so it's a little bit easier to maintain. You can see how those plants do before adding any sort of live animal. And when you do decide to add an animal, make sure it's not a spur of the moment purchase. You do your research, you make sure that habitat that you have set up is set up just right for whatever you're going to be getting, and that you can maintain a healthy lifestyle for food as well as future habitat needs, size requirements, anything like that. A lot of plants and animals are difficult to keep, and you want to make sure you're not starting off with those. You want to make sure that whatever you get, you're keeping happy and healthy in whatever you have set up in your place. And the 5th and final one that's the hardest to plan for is the possibility of life changes. If you get something set up and you get an animal that lives for 15 to 20 years, you're most likely not going to be living in the same spot, or you're going to have kids or roommates that are moving in and out. So you want to make sure that if things do change, you're committed to keeping that animal healthy and alive, or you can rehome that animal really easily. For example, make sure you ask your mom if it's okay if she takes care of your snake if they find it in your college dorm. Just kidding. You probably shouldn't do that in the first place. If you do have a setup with just plants, that's going to be a lot easier to move around, get rid of. Plants don't have feelings. I'm pretty sure that's still politically correct to say, but animals definitely do. So make sure that those things will be taken care of in the future. Don't get anything that's going to live for 50 years unless you already know that you want to keep it for 50 years. So those are the 5 major things to consider of whether or not you should get a terrarium. If you can't come up with a good answer for all 5 of these things, probably not the best time for you to get something set up where you have living plants or animals in your home. Hope that helps, guys. Here's a couple more videos if you do end up wanting to keep something. I've got a few more coming out in the future of really small setups if you don't have a lot of space. That will be easy to set up as well as take care of and not take up too much room if you don't have it. Thanks for watching.